Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. The cost of food has been burdening Canadians and their wallets all year. Well, it looks like, according to a new report, today the Canadian Food Price Report predicts those prices will get even higher in 2024. We'll hear from one of the researchers involved. We'll also hear more about shrinkflation and why the weight listed on your cereal box may not be correct. After 12:30, a dietitian will talk about working on food insecurity and health. We want to hear from you as well. Are you concerned about food costs? I'm Michelle Eliot. Welcome to BC Today. Thanks for joining us on CBC Radio 1 and live streaming on CBC Gem, cbc.ca/BC, and on the CBC Vancouver YouTube page. Well, that sticker shock at grocery stores that you have felt likely this year will continue into the new year. Well, that's according to Canada's Food Price Report issued by researchers at four universities across Canada, including UBC. And it predicts food prices will increase by 2.5% to 4.5%, with a cost to a family of four going up by about $700 more on meat, vegetables, and baked goods. We want to hear from you. Are you concerned about rising food costs as we head into the new year? And what steps have you taken in your household to save money at the grocery store? You can call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. And by email, you can send us your thoughts to bctoday@cbc.ca. Richard Baricello is professor of food and resource economics at the University of BC and one of the researchers involved in the Food Price Report. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Michelle.
What stands out for you in these findings?
Well, first of all, that there's still a fairly wide range of uncertainty as to exactly what we should expect for the next year. But secondly, and somewhat encouragingly, we do see inflation of food prices declining. So last year, as you might recall, it was about 6%. 2023, actually even more in 2022. But this year, 2.5 to 4.5, we're saying. But and maybe even a little bit below, because we seem to be trending downward in inflation.
And so despite prices still going up, it's at a slower rate than we have seen in the past this year and last year.
Exactly. But there's one disturbing thing, and that is we still have food prices going up faster than overall inflation. We've been more successful on the inflation front overall. Food prices are still a couple of percentage points higher, and that's both puzzling and unfortunate.
Okay, yeah, and it has been consistent as well. You just said it's puzzling, but what do we know about the reasons behind that food inflation?
Well, quite a lot of little things, because there's so many factors at work, Michelle. One thing we know is it's not from the world market commodity prices. Those have actually gone down by 25% since their peak, which was about April, May of 2022. You remember, after the Ukraine war. So it's not world prices by and large that is doing this, although rice prices recently have been going up and adding to the problems. But it's really been weighed, the labor side, the packaging side, the supply chains generally. It has not been energy, at least not from our work. So it's a variety of things, but just like I was saying, not the raw food commodity prices.
And what about the role of grocery stores? We know that today grocery CEOs are speaking again in front of an agriculture house committee. And they're talking about what a code of conduct might, what the implications of that might be for grocery stores. What role do they play in those prices?
Grocery prices in Canada are there's somewhat less competition here than in the US. So it's always becomes a flashpoint for discussion and debate. But it's very hard to extract exactly like how much are they contributing to this. And I guess what I would say overall is their margins have been around for a long time, and so it's maybe damning with faint praise to say they haven't caused as much of this inflation, but their margins are in there and they're healthy, and so I wouldn't want to give them a free pass, but we haven't been able to. Some of the evidence says yes, they've contributed more now, and some of the evidence says no. So it's very hard to make a strong statement on that.
And we still get, conflicting statements based depending on who you speak to. Just want to play a little bit of a clip from one of those CEOs, Galen Weston, who's chair of the Loblaws group of companies. Here he was speaking from outside this morning's proceedings to reporters, and he was asked how stores and grocers justify high profits and executive compensation. Here's what he had to say.
Industry again makes about 3.5–4% profit. Inflation today is running at about 5%. So even if the whole industry put all of its profit into lower food prices tomorrow, prices would continue to go up. And the reason I share that way is we can't control where we only represent such a small part of the value chain.
That's Galen Weston, the chairman of the Loblaws group of companies. Meanwhile, BC NDP Alistair McGregor, who represents Cowichan, Malahat, Langford on the island, is the NDP critic for food prices and is part of this committee. He spoke as well, and he refuted that statement.
That's deflecting the problem, because right now we have a situation where 80% of the market is controlled by just 5 companies. So they absolutely have huge control. We have heard from manufacturers that they are struggling with the hidden fees, unexplained costs.
That's Alistair McGregor, who's a BC MP speaking in Ottawa to reporters today. So as you said, this is a flashpoint, right, Richard? And what we do know is that groceries have said we're going to try to do something about it. There's this code of conduct that they're working on. Some of the elements involve price matching, members discounts, and focus discounts on staples like eggs, milk, butter, and chicken, and the usual price freeze in during this time of year, fall and winter, looking to have that extended. You said it's hard to pinpoint exactly what role they play, but what can they do?
Well, if there was more competition, those margins would be lower, and we would see a lower contribution from those margins. But what I suspect we'll see is that we'll see food price inflation coming down. It's come down in the U.S. We tend to follow that very closely, given how closely integrated our food sector is between the two countries. And then everybody's going to want to take credit for that. It's happening regardless, but we're going to have the government of Canada wanting to take credit, and we're going to have the food companies, their executives wanting to take credit due to price freezes and whatever. So I would take all those claims for credit with a large grain of salt.
No pun intended. What do you see as something concrete that the government could do? You've referred to competition already. Do you think that that's the way to go? Increase competition?
Well, it's not something, yes, our competition bureau could be much more active in this domain. But that's really a long-term measure, and it's not you can't turn to that for any kind of relief within a year or two. So it would be good. We don't seem to have seen many moves in that direction, and more would be welcome. But really, there's limits to what the government can actually do on this. Like I said, the same patterns have been observed in the US, in the UK, and the EU. This is not a Canada problem so much, but this gap between food prices going up and overall inflation, where we've had this unusual 2 years, the last 2 years are unusual to have food prices going up faster than general inflation. The peak was in June of this year. The US has now closed the gap. We're still 2 percentage points higher on food inflation. So But we lag the U.S. quite systematically in this kind of calculation. So I would expect to see us that narrowing to continue. Just it's frustrating it's not happening faster, but I'm not really sure how much the government can do, and its claims to do more are, I think, rather empty.
I want to ask you one more question about what consumers are doing in the face of these prices. I want to put the phone numbers out once again. We are taking your calls, asking you how concerned you are about the high cost of food and what steps are you taking to try to save money while you're at the grocery store. Love to hear from you. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone as well. You can email bctoday@cbc.ca. We had a call from Monica who just wanted to share that she has seen shrinkflation. This is packaging seeming to shrink and be smaller. She went to a bakery, found larger tarts that used to be $4.99, now $6.99, and the filling was like putting peanut butter onto a sandwich, and so she took that back. Monica, thank you very much. I'm sorry you had to go and couldn't stay on the line. Richard, you found in your report as well that families are doing things to save money and spend less each month.
Yes, it notes, the report does note that in the last year, at least this is measured August 22 to August 23, that Canadians actually spent less on food. They cut back on their monthly spending per capita. But you know how much it was? The news item was only 3%. So people are clearly substituting, you know, maybe away from name brands to generics and hunting more for sale prices and finding shops that are charging a bit less, and that certainly is an avenue that we all use, and so that's what these numbers. That's how I would interpret these numbers. People are shopping more carefully and cutting out maybe some expensive treats.
Do you have any advice to share with us?
You know, I have no more expertise on that than anybody else. In fact, your listeners are probably going to give us better tips than I could. And I just shop that same way. And we cut out in our family, cut out more treats, and we look for cheaper prices and so on.
Yes, you suffer the same sticker shock when you head to the grocery stores, do you?
Yes, exactly.
Nice to speak with you. Thanks so much for the time.
Thank you, Michelle.
Richard Baricello is professor of food and resource economics at UBC and one of the researchers involved in the food prices report that did find that, yes, prices of food will continue to go up at a slower rate when it comes to inflation next year in 2024, but the average family is expected to face costs of $700 more when it comes to food costs. And we're taking your calls on that. You know, what are your concerns when it comes to the price of food? And what are the steps that you're taking to try and save money at the grocery store? Are you choosing no-name brands? Are you just finding ways to shop wisely, going to different stores to comparison shop? And are you buying less? Give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, pound 690 on your cell phone. We have a reporter standing by to tell us about a story she's been working on with regard to food packaging and labels. But right now, Caitlin is on the line in Victoria just to tell us what she's been seeing. Hi, Caitlin.
Hi there. Yeah, it's just insane with everything that's going on. Just listening to them talking about how their inflation is not going up as much. It's still going up. It doesn't stop anything. Like, that's not helping anybody on the bottom. It needs to go backwards somehow. There needs to be like the profits of Loblaw need to be looked at over the pandemic, and like the amount that they've made needs to be assessed and redistributed amongst people. Like, discounts aren't going to help anybody. If you're working, how am I going to go in on a Monday to get eggs and a Friday to get bread? Like, that's just insane. I was at the grocery store the other day and I got like bread, a couple of vegetables, and butter. And I was talking to the cashier, and it's more than half of her hour's wage. So
Wow.
if grocery store employees can't afford to buy groceries, like, you know, it's a pyramid. The people at the bottom, if we're not gonna live, then it's gonna crumble.
Caitlin, thank you very much. Good to hear from you. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. That's Caitlin joining us from Victoria. You can call in too, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. And meanwhile, concerns around shrinkflation or skimpflation are anecdotally circulating among shoppers. We just heard an example from someone who called earlier. CBC Sophia Harris has found shoppers who have discovered boxes of Cheerios or boxes of chips that weigh far less than it says on the box or the package. And Sophia joins me now from Toronto. Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us, Sophia. How did you become curious about this?
Well, talking about shrinkflation and skimpflation, I had done a story about shrinkflation when a company shrinks the product but not the price, and skimpflation, and that's when a company swaps out ingredients for cheaper ones, but again, doesn't lower the price. And because I'd done those stories, Paul J. In Ottawa, a Cheerios customer reached out to me and he said, you know, I got a story for you about Cheerios mislabeled weights on Cheerios boxes. And I talked to him and I thought, this is a story. And then I went on social media to see if I could find any other examples. And that's when I discovered Jocelyn Dilworth in Toronto. And she discovered she bought chips that turned out to be no-name Loblaw brand chips that turned out to be way far less than what was stated on the bag.
Okay, so you heard from Paul and from Jocelyn. What exactly did the packaging say and what did they find? Can you show us?
Well, yeah, for those of you who can see me, Paul J. went to the store and he bought a 2-pack of jumbo multigrain Cheerios.
Okay,
now,
you're
it's a
holding the box
2-pack,
there.
So,
Mm-hmm.
yes, there's 2 boxes attached together. Now, each box says it weighs 1.01 kilograms. So the box on the back, 1.01 kilograms. And if you separate the 2 boxes, they each say they weigh 1.01 kilograms. So if you looked at this, how much would you assume, these 2 boxes weigh altogether?
Right. 1 and 1 makes 2.
Correct. Actually, it's 1 kilogram altogether. They both are posted the combined weight of the 2 boxes, the total weight, but this is not made clear on the packaging. And that's the mistake, is that it is not stated on the packaging that 2 boxes equals 1 kilogram.
Okay, and Paul assumed that was the case.
Yeah, he just assumed I'm getting 2 kilograms. And it wasn't until he got kind of suspicious and he weighed them that he discovered that each box is actually about 500 grams.
Okay.
Jocelyn, yeah, she bought 2 bags of chips and she went home and she discovered one was lighter than the other and she weighed it. Now, I went to her home to verify that her scale is correct. I tested it. Her scale is correct. And in front of me, she weighed it. The chips weigh only 103 grams and it says 200 grams on the bag. So that's almost half what the bag says it weighs.
So you reached out to the companies. What did you hear from them?
Well, General Mills, that's the makers of Cheerios, told me that they are working on a fix and that the correct packaging will be in stores this month. However, I can tell you that right now, the fix is not in because I bought these at a grocery store today. And so the mislabeled packaging is still on store shelves for anyone who's shopping. Just so you know, you get the 2-pack of jumbo Cheerios. It's 1 kilogram, not 2. And Loblaw, I reached out to Loblaw companies and the company told me that there were actually 2 cases of underweighted chips I found on TikTok videos. And they told me that these are rare cases, Jocelyn and another person who had onion ring chips. And Loblaw's told me they're rare and that they have put measures in place to ensure this doesn't happen again. And if it does happen again, chances are we'll hear about it because I bet lots of people now are, if they have no-name chips, they're probably weighing them just to see if they're the right weight.
Have you had any responses from folks like that?
Well, I actually, after my story ran about, underweighted products, I got flooded with emails. People complaining, I bought this package and it says 35 shrimp and I've counted and there's only 30 shrimp in here. Or, this was 100 grams less than what it states. I was surprised. I actually didn't realize that this is a thing. And just so you know, CBC's Marketplace is actually working on a story on this, and they're actually going into stores and weighing products. So CBC will be doing more on this issue. That is, I guess, it's a thing.
It's your story is resonating with people anecdotally. You said,
Yes.
on TikTok, people are posting all these videos. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency says manufacturers must post the accurate weight on the label of pre-packaged food. And when posting total weights for multi-packs, the packaging must make clear how many items make up that weight. And as I've been speaking about with our previous guest, the government today, continuing to talk about food prices with grocery CEOs in front of the standing committee at the House of Commons, continuing to work, right, on trying to rein in grocery prices. Is this part of what they're looking at, or?
Well, it's not yet. And the reason I say that is because the government has said they're investigating skimpflation and shrinkflation. And I think the reason they are is because there's been a lot of media reports about this and consumers complaining about it. Now that word is out about, underweighted food, I think that the government may pay attention to that and say, we want to look at that too. And just to add, I think the reason this is striking a chord right now is, we've been talking about high grocery prices. This is sort of, I guess, adding insult to injury for people because they think already I'm paying more for something and now maybe I'm not even getting what I paid for.
So what's your advice in the meanwhile? For someone who's shopping, should they get themselves a food scale?
Well, I think it's a bit impractical to say weigh everything you buy because nobody has probably the time or the patience for that. But I would say, if you're in the store and something kind of seems lighter than it should be, just put it back, get a different one. And then if you come home and you're suspicious about something, then do weigh it. That's what Jocelyn Dilworth did, the woman who bought the Loblaw brand no-name chips. She bought 2 bags and one seemed lighter than the other, so she was suspicious. And that's when she weighed it. Paul J., the way he figured it out was, he's got these 2 1-kilogram boxes, and he noticed they were much smaller in size than a larger box of Cheerios he had that said on the box it weighed much less. And he thought, how can the larger box weigh less? So, if there's something that makes you suspicious about a product, weigh it. And then, complain to the company. And you can also contact the Canadian Food Inspection Agency and complain to them as well. That's what Paul J., the Cheerios customer, did. And they did launch an investigation.
Sophia, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That's Sophia Harris, CBC reporter based in Toronto. Let us know if you've found some examples that have made you suspicious. Give us a call, 1-800-825-5950. Let's quickly go to Fiona in Nanaimo. Hi, Fiona. What's grocery shopping been like for you?
Well, frankly, with all the things going on, my husband's having heart surgery. I'm working at limited capacity for stress, and I was in my local Save On food store the other day, just picking up a few things, and I walked through the produce department, and the small clamshell of raspberries was advertised for $2.99 for the first one, and I love raspberries. So I took them with me to the till, and when it was run through, I said to the clerk, "What did you charge me for those?" And she said $4.99, and I said, "Well, how do I get them for $2.99?" "Oh, well, you have to put them on the app and go to the QR code or whatever." And I just said, "Take them off my bill, please." I was really upset when I left. I actually went over to the customer service department and I said to a young lady there, I looked her straight in the eye and I said, "Look, I'm your grandma. I'm over 70, and I've shopped at Save On Foods for almost half my life. But anyway, I said to this young lady, I'm your grandma, and I want to get my raspberries for $2.99, and I don't know how." She was very, very helpful, but it took her about 17 steps, and she had to cancel my card and get a new card. We had to go through my email, and when we were finished, she said, "Now you have to wait till you get the link from Save On and finish it off," or whatever. And when I left, I thought, that's really not fair that I have to pay $2 more for that item because I don't want to be tech savvy. I don't want to carry my phone into the store. I think that's discrimination. There's a lot of people who maybe can't afford to have a cell phone and they can't get that bargain because they can't do the QR code or whatever that we're asked to do. It really upset me. And right now, I'm sitting in my car, really happy for the opportunity to speak to you. I got up this morning and I decided to go to talk to the manager, and I'm sitting outside the store.
And you're about to do that.
I am.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you called in as well, Fiona. What a really, an example of a personal story, how someone is affected. You've got all these other things you're dealing with as well. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm glad that there was someone there to help you.
I tried to find a corporate customer service for Pattison Food Group. I don't know how effective I'll be talking to the manager here, but I think that they need to recognize that this is a form of discrimination against people who can't function that way to save $2.
Fiona, thanks so much. It may be something we pursue as well and make some calls. Thanks so much for your call today. Fiona, who's about to head in and speak with the manager about the price of raspberries that she saw. We'd love to hear from you. What are the prices that you're seeing? Are you concerned about them when you go to the grocery store? And what are the steps that you're taking to try and save money when you're grocery shopping? Again, our numbers are 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. We'll go to Ben in Fort St. John just after this CBC News update with Karis Hogg.
Thank you, Michelle. Well, the province will soon scrap waitlist fees at many daycares around BC. Starting in April, childcare providers that receive operating funds from the province will no longer be allowed to charge the fee. The province says it will remove financial barriers and ensure equitable access for all families. The federal government is rolling out its latest climate change initiative today. It's aimed specifically at Canada's oil and gas industry. The details of the plan are still being worked out, but it's scheduled to take effect in 2 years, with oil and gas producers needing to cut emissions by roughly 35% by the end of the decade. The Alberta government has already said it will fight the plan. A mobile overdose prevention site will launch in Maple Ridge later this month. Fraser Health says in a statement that the site will begin operations on December 18th using a customized van with an outdoor covered area to accommodate people who inhale or smoke substances. The site is a partnership between Fraser Health and Rain City Housing to provide staffing support in terms of detox, withdrawal management, and treatment options. And parts of eastern BC are under a snowfall warning, with some areas forecast to get as much as 15 centimeters today. Environment Canada says the Elk Valley area near Fernie, as well as Highway 3 between Grand Forks and Creston, may get enough snow to limit visibility. The forecast says the snowfall should ease later today, but residents and motorists should be prepared for deteriorating road conditions. And now back to Michelle Eliot with BC Today.
Thank you, Karis. Are you doing anything to try and cut your costs at the grocery store?
Oh, yes. I have 2 growing children and they won't stop eating, which is wonderful. But I try and do sales and I try and choose things that just cost less. It's a constant battle.
I'm with you. I'm getting to know my flyers every week.
Yes, absolutely. You got to do everything.
Weekly reading material.
Yeah.
Karis, thanks so much.
Thank you, Michelle.
That's Karis Hogg in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. And welcome back. Thanks for joining us here on CBC Radio 1. This is BC Today. You are listening to us at 88.3 FM in Fort St. John, and you can watch us live streaming too. You can use the CBC News app or CBC Gem. You can go online to our website, cbc.ca/BC, or use YouTube. Just search for CBC Vancouver. And we have been talking about the high price of food. The Canada Food Price Report is out today, and it finds that while inflation when it comes to food will slow down in the next year, that is their prediction, people will still be paying more, about 2.5% to 4.5% more. And the average family of 4 is expected to face prices of up to $700 more next year. And so we are asking you, how concerned are you about high food prices as we head into the new year? And what are the steps that you're taking to try and save money as you go to the grocery store? And our numbers again, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, pound 690 on your cell phone. Let's quickly go to Ben in Fort St. John. Hi, Ben. Thanks so much for your patience. Thanks for waiting.
Hi, Michelle. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure. What are your thoughts?
Before I start there, I'm going to agree with Fiona, your previous caller. If you need an app or a card to get a special price just so that you can track my spending, I'm out. I think that is a form of discrimination. I think that you shouldn't have to participate in that type of I don't know, just a sham to get a special price.
Okay, well, thanks for sharing that. It just occurs to me, we'll follow up on that. I wonder if it has to do with points or anything like that, having accumulated points. I don't know, but certainly I take your point, and it sounds like she's going in to talk to the manager at her local store, and we'll try to find out more, Ben. Thank you very much.
But what I did want to say, Michelle, was I think a lot of people are ignoring two critical chains or links in the food chain for retail food. Is the manufacturer and distribution side. Everybody seems to be demonizing the retailers, and I actually worked in the servicing the retail food industry for 20 years. And they don't have a lot of control on the price of the item when it gets to their loading dock. The price is basically monopolized by a handful of large multinational manufacturers and distributors like Nestle and Mondelez, to name a couple. When you think of the thousands of SKUs that are available in a grocery store, half to three quarters of those are basically controlled worldwide by half a dozen companies.
I wonder.
And nobody is pointing fingers at them, saying, "How come you can't give the grocery store a better price when they buy your product so that they can sell them at a reasonable price?" Nobody is really talking about that.
Okay, so getting to their root, to the manufacturers themselves, and what role they play in that chain.
Yeah, these are huge companies. Like I say, Nestle and Mondelez are the two big ones that I can think of. When they go to the store and say, "Listen, that can of beans that you were paying $1 for last week, that price is $1.25 now." And, the retail store is going to say, well, the big grocery stores have a little bit of negotiating power, but they're basically left at the mercy of what these companies are charging them at the store level so that they can sell them to us.
Okay. And Ben, what about, we had this port strike, right, this year as well. What role might that play when it comes to that supply chain?
It's all part of the supply chain. The food system, the worldwide food system is extremely complex and hard to manage. And in every link in that chain, there are increased costs that are passed on to the next link in that chain. So when a manufacturer manufactures something from a raw material, once they make that and they have to send it off to another link in the chain, which would probably be the distribution side, those added costs are added onto their price to the distributor. The distributor has added prices in their chain of supply that get added on till it finally gets to the grocery store. So, prices have been marked up 3, 4, 5 times with inflation added on to that.
Ben, really good to hear from you in Fort St. John. You take care. That's Ben joining us from up in Fort St. John. Well, with everyone feeling the pinch with these food prices, it represents additional challenges for those who have special food requirements or those on a fixed income. And so we're taking your calls on that too. As we ask you, are you concerned about food costs? What about if you have those added challenges? And how are you eating healthily while on a budget? Our numbers again are 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. And we have two guests joining us to share some strategies about that. Fatima Da Silva is co-founder and executive director of the Nourish Cowichan Society. And Mary Labe is a nutritional sciences professor emeritus at the University of Toronto. Hello, good afternoon to both of you.
Hi, good afternoon.
Thank you so much for joining us. Fatima, how did you come to begin? How did you come to start Nourish Cowichan Society? Fatima, I think we're just we're not able to hear you right now. You might be on mute.
Let
And
me
she's
see.
leaning over to hit mute. And we have you now. I know that movement very well because I've done it myself.
You still
Are you
can
there? We can hear you now. Go ahead, Fatima. How did the Nourish Cowichan come to be? Oh, it's happening again. I'm so sorry. I don't know why. I thought I heard you for a moment. What I'll do is I'll quickly go to Mary Labe, and hopefully we can fix that technical issue, okay? My apologies for that. Mary Labe, you actually are the director of the World Health Organization, or a director on nutrition policy for chronic disease prevention. When you hear about increasing food prices and what we may face next year, how concerned are you?
Well, I think it actually is a concern. I mean, all of us are feeling the price of foods. And I think, as you've reported in some of these other reports, it's been in the media, food prices have actually been going up a lot more than many other, parts of our budgets. But it also is the part of our budget that people often have to save on because you can't reduce your rent. You can't reduce, if you have to spend transportation. So it is a real worrisome for most families.
I bet. And Fatima, you deal with families, right? Your program helps kids who go to school.
Yes, we do. And we're seeing families struggling more and more as day goes by. This financial crisis has been actually really hard for some of the families we support. We currently now supporting more than 1,700 children in the schools with a breakfast, lunch, and snack program. We also offer a weekend program just to get them through the weekend. But what we're seeing is the increase of families coming directly to us for an extra support to get through the week.
Wow.
So it's really hard on families.
I can imagine so. And Mary, when you hear that, then, what are some strategies people can employ?
Well, I think, some of them are pretty obvious. And I think some of your earlier speakers and callers mentioned it. Obviously watch for sales. Those make a big difference in your food budget. But then I think if you find the sales, you have to really look up on the internet or find in your cookbooks, how to cook with some of the ingredients that you may not be that familiar with. And that's looking for those sales, looking at flyers. And I think another part that we forget about is trying not to waste food. Sometimes it takes a bit of ingenuity to use those leftovers, either to freeze them, to save them for another meal in another day, or find interesting recipes to use some of those things that might be on sale that may not be the things you've normally bought. But if they're a good deal, why not try it and try some imagination or look up for some good recipes to figure out how to use some of those ingredients. And those are practical examples of the types of things that really can help you manage your food budget a little better. But that's true. There are challenges in trying to eat when you don't have a lot of money.
Yeah, Fatima, I'll quickly ask you before I go to Chris in Cranbrook. How challenging is it to eat healthily for these kids then, while on a budget?
It is challenging, but again, what we're trying to do is change our recipes, going more vegetables and legumes versus using that much meat that we used to before. But the most challenging part for us also is making sure that our families are supported. We're constantly coming up with new campaigns to support families. For instance, right now we're doing a campaign where we're raising funds. So during the holidays, those families can get gift cards to go and do their grocery. It's extremely hard for them, especially when it comes this time of the year, because your utilities will increase because you're now having to pay more for heating
Right.
and just in general. So I think the idea of probably not getting just stuck with the same recipes, that is fantastic. Just trying to see what specials out there, but also lean on there's a lot of charity organizations out there trying to help. And I think if the public support those local charity organizations that are providing meal for families, we need to do more of that and help each other get through this.
Okay, let's go to our callers now. Lots on the line wanting to comment. My guests are Fatima Da Silva, co-owner and executive director, co-founder rather, my apologies, and executive director of Nourish Cowichan Society, and Mary Labe is a nutritional sciences professor emeritus at the University of Toronto. Also works with the World Health Organization on nutrition policy for chronic disease prevention. Chris is joining us from Cranbrook. And Chris, how are these prices affecting you?
Well, it's hard. It is hard. As I said to your producer, the screening person, that the Safeway that I shop at in Cranbrook, they have a points card. Mm-hmm. Okay? That's fine. But, you know, I don't have a computer. I don't have a smartphone. I'm a dinosaur. Okay? But the thing is that, if you have a points card, you get this much off.
Right.
Well, that's discrimination, and your previous callers have mentioned that as well. But with the grocery prices, you know, granted, I do buy omega-3 for my heart, but they say, fish is better. Well, you know, you can eat sushi, but, you know, your sushi delivered, Christ, you're paying $50. Hello?
What have
For
you?
A little swab?
Yeah. What have you tried to do then to try and eat more fish, more canned fish, perhaps?
Well, canned fish. Are you kidding? Like, it's $6 a can?
You're looking at the salmon.
In Cranbrook, anyway. In Cranbrook.
Interesting.
You know, $5.99, or if it's on sale, okay, maybe $5.
Oh boy, Chris, thank you so much. I'm sorry that that it's so hard to find the food, affordable food that you need for your condition, and that's
you know, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's just the supply.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
No, I'm sorry to hear it. Yeah.
Well,
thank you
I'm muddling through. Okay.
Yeah.
That's it.
I appreciate your call, Chris. Thank you so much. And you have touched on a bit of a common refrain we're hearing, right? Of being able to access these apps or those points cards that requiring some technical know-how, and whether you're able to access that is a question. And then your ability to save is contingent on that. So that may be something we follow up on then. And I'll actually ask my guests about that in a moment. I just want to go to Jillian, who's been waiting in Golden. How do you deal with these prices, Jillian?
Hi. So, I mean, I'm a single parent of a toddler, and I'm really been struggling. I utilize the food bank and then supplement because I'm trying to give my child fresh veggies and fresh fruit as much as possible. But, I mean, our grocery bill is still...
Hi, Jillian.
Hi.
Yes, I'm sorry we lost you there. Your grocery bill is still fairly high. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Still $600 or $700 a month. And I just received an email that Love Child Organics, which produces infant food pouches, which I've loved because they include grains and vitamin C and different things, and they were locally done, got acquired by Nature's Path. I used to be able to buy a single pouch online from the company directly for $1.66 per pouch. And since Nature's Path has acquired them, they are now $4.19 a pouch, which is huge. Would mean that if I were to continue buying the pouches, my grocery bill per month would go up to $125 a month.
More?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. And I mean, here you are with these kids. You've gone to the food bank. What are your hopes or concerns for next year?
My concerns are just being able to maintain a healthy, nutritious diet for my child and expose him to as many foods as possible to enable him to grow up with a healthy connection to food, and just struggling to put food on the table.
Oh, Jillian, my heart goes out to you. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah, all the best. That's Jillian calling us from Golden. A couple of points I want to touch on there with my guests. I'll go to you first, Fatima. She said, I want my child to have a healthy relationship with food. And I wonder what impact that has on children when there's, ongoing stress about being able to purchase food. How does that impact kids?
It does impact them. And this is the reason that we have been fighting to get national school food programs for that reason. The reality is when you have those programs in school and we offer good nutrition to children in our schools, it takes away a lot of the stress from the families. We keep looking at this like it's a privilege. It's not a privilege. Many countries around the world do have school food programs. Canada, for some reason, we're still so far behind. And we talk more and more about it, and there's been plans and studies to get us there, but we're still really far behind. And imagine the level of stress that will take away from parents. Food it's never been a privilege. Food is a right, especially for our children. So I do not understand why we're still so far behind in that subject when there's been so many studies. We do not need any more studies to know that it is very beneficial for children to have proper nutrition in schools. We are working really hard in trying to offer more meals in the schools and having an open door policy to every single child. But we do hear from parents how hard it is for them. And we do try our best, but we need more action, both from government, so we can do this better. It's getting to a point that's very critical for families, and we need to do better.
And Mary, I wanted to ask you about this recurring point that's been made by, I think, 3 callers now, having to deal with technology. Whether you have a card, have to go online and use a code, a QR code, using your points, and how much of a barrier that can be for people. How concerning is that? Is that something you've looked at all in terms of how equitable even, being able to access those sales are?
We've only looked at some of the things, and I actually totally agree with your callers. I mean, we should not have to depend on electronic apps, mobile apps, in order to access sales and flyers. I mean, they should still be accessible, in the stores as you walk in your local community papers. And I totally agree with them. The other thing that we found, when they are available, one of the things we've done in our research, we've actually looked at what the companies put online. And there, they actually are doing a terrible job. Many of the grocery retailers, if you did choose to go online and look and see what the flyers are, and many of them don't have information about allergens on those websites. They don't have information in the nutrition facts table. So even if you were trying to do a good job and using those apps, they're often a very poor substitute from the information that we used to get in the flyers or that we'd see on the food packages. And that also is unacceptable for consumers. So it's both ways. Even if they are asking consumers to use these apps, they're not even giving the consumers all the information on the app, which is a terrible thing to do.
Lots of emails on this as well. We did have someone who was on the line who said they were visually impaired and it was virtually impossible to figure out those online sales. So the accessibility question there too. Suzanne writes us by email, I've now resorted to shopping at food rescue organizations. No, I can't get everything, but I can cope with slightly less than perfect produce, etc. for a fraction of the price. I buy mostly stuff on sale and I shop at Dollar Tree for bread and some canned goods. Laura writes us as well, vegetables and small portions of meat or seafood, and it's delicious comfort food. Dried kidney beans or chickpeas instead of canned saves a lot of money too. Okay, thank you very much for that. Holly writes us, and this is a counterpoint. I personally don't think we pay enough for food. It takes a lot of time and energy to grow and distribute food in this era of climate change. I appreciate this work and I'm willing to pay what it's worth. To save money, I buy from local farmers and markets whenever I can. I buy whole foods only, never processed food or junk food. I rarely eat out, including drinks. And as a society, we need to ask ourselves what we truly value and be willing to pay for it. Thank you for that point, Holly. And then let's go to Mary on that. In this era of climate change, food is a right, as we heard from Fatima earlier, but should we be paying for something that we do value?
Well, yes. And I mean, I think we are paying a lot for foods. And I think your previous email that came in, I think that customer made a really good point about eating locally, but also just eating unprocessed foods, because often it's the processed foods, we're paying a lot of money for that convenience. And that, but then, we have to balance that with the amount of time we have to prepare meals.
Right.
So, it is, I mean, any mother, working mother with children, I mean, they're all struggling with the same, counter decisions. Do I pay more for the convenience of eating out or having something that's already pre-made, or do I spend the time? And so I think we really have to start thinking about what do we value, or how can we, if we decide we will be making more foods from scratch, which is really the most healthy way to eat, is to carve out some time to make it easier for ourselves, like maybe a bit of time on the weekend or one evening, have your children help you to, make the snacks, make some of these things ahead of time so they're ready to, pop out after school one night. But yeah, it is a challenge. And
and Fatima knows that, right? Working with families. I just have a minute left, Fatima, but your advice for families dealing with high prices.
Oh, I could not have said better than Mary, because that is true. Many people have this misconception that buying canned food will be cheaper. It's not. If you buy everything from scratch and make it fun, look for new recipes, spend a day with your children and prepare food ahead, put in your freezers. I do not plan meals ahead anymore when I'm going to the supermarket. What I do when I get there is see what is on sale and make my decision based on that.
Reverse engineering.
Exactly. So you actually you'll save way more. I used to make plans about what I was going to prepare for the entire week, and you get a supermarket, and those items are more expensive. But get there, see what you can find, and then find the recipes. Do with your family and friends. I used to get together with friends and do tons of the same and put in the freezer.
It's a great tip. I really love speaking with you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Fatima Da Silva and Mary Labe. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Michelle Eliot. Have a great afternoon.